Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and the MFF devs dropped a developer's note as of this morning, 8 a.m. to address the continued backlash from the community regarding the November update. The bugs to characters like Hulk, Namor, and Black Bolt, the CTP reforging not working, etc. So this is pretty big. You know, I'm a big fan of communication in Marvel Future Fight in any form, so I do like to see this, but we're going to have to get into a little bit more detail here because the devs, I think, are missing the full picture. They are talking about certain things and they are going in the right direction, but they're still lagging behind on the proper response to Hulk and Namor, in my opinion. Additionally, there's been a ton of research on the community side of things, so I wanted to bring that in, and I wanted to have enough time to balance everything and schedule everything into this video, so that's why I didn't drop it as my first video. So let's take a look at what the developers are saying. We'd like to thank all our agents for enjoying the update. After going over various opinions that agents sent us, we would like to inform agents about the CTP of Rage reforging effects and the Tier 4 skill effect of Black Bolt. Okay, so they're sort of talking about these things kind of at the same time. So the mighty brilliant CTP of Rage, Enrage effects. So they noticed that the effects of the Enrage are hard to feel in difficult game modes like World Boss and Giant Boss Raid. And the increased critical damage effect of the Enrage proc does not show the intended performance for enemies with high defense rate. They're planning to make additional improvements so that the intended effects can be applied. So this goes back to my video and videos of a bunch of other content creators, which basically showed that in high-level World Boss Legend content in Dormammu GBR, it's very difficult to see any kind of buff, whether you're using a regular rage, whether you're using a mighty rage, or whether you're using a brilliant rage. We are aiming to make these improvements within November, and we will deliver details through further notices. So this is basically saying that they're not done with the changes to the CTP of Rage. Remember how they buffed them? They buffed the percentages from 130 to 200% and 200% to 300%, yada, yada, yada. They're going to make further changes. That doesn't just mean that they're going to be buffing numbers. They may be changing effects entirely. So because the CTP of Rage reforging is so in flux right now with changes coming, my advice to you, as it was a couple of days ago, is don't reforge any CTPs of Rage. If you've already reforged them, don't reforge any new ones, because who knows, you may not be a fan, you may not be happy with whatever the final result is for the Rage. And just so that everyone's clear about this, I'm not pushing the devs to make Rage the best CTP in the game. I do believe in CTP balance, and I do wish that the CTPs, you know, would be able to compete with one another, especially when you're talking about, you know, a mighty energy versus a mighty rage versus a mighty judgment, and so on and so forth. That sort of balance definitely exists in PvP, where there seems to be a pretty decent triangle between regen, authority, and greed, although greed lags behind a little bit, I would say, versus regen and authority, because defense tends to beat out offense in autoplay scenarios. There is still some balance there, so I'm hoping the devs can bring that balance from PvP over to PvE with energy, judgment, and rage, because that's really how I see it balancing out in terms of a triangle. But we'll have to wait and see. So that is the case there. At this point, now that we're talking about the CTP of Rage and how it's difficult to notice the effects, I want to bring in some outside expertise here. So this is a YouTube channel which is way smaller than they should be. Show Pedro some love, please. Please hit up their channel, subscribe, my bad, and check out this video, because they've been doing some really nice research, better than my own, about the Rage CTP proc, the Enrage proc on the Mighty and the Brilliant. So I'm not going to show you the full video, but essentially what this video discovers is that the difference between a crit and a non-crit in this content is essentially non-existent. So what that means is basically the way that the game is calculating critical hits and non-critical hits, because of this content you see is on stage 94 of Null, it essentially reduces the effectiveness of crit damage so that it's basically irrelevant. So as you can see here, a crit is only worth 1.013 compared to a non-crit. So they go on to speculate as to why they think that it's been designed this way. Perhaps, you know, it would be much less fun to play World Boss if your damage was fluctuating and spiking so much. Maybe the boss has very, very high defense related to how much critical damage they take. If you're familiar with a game like 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, they have different types of defenses. They have defense specifically for when you already have been crit, right? So certain units, certain characters have very, very high crit defense. So even though it might be easy to land a critical attack on them, the critical attack doesn't do very much more damage, right? So there are different ways of calculating these things, and there may be multiple layers of defense at play. Like when we think of defense, we just think of one holistic number, and it's either a bigger number or a smaller number. But the way that defense is calculated, whether you're being hit with a critical attack, a non-critical attack, whether you have pierce or not, etc., all of those things can be factored in, could be factored in at different points in different formulas. We don't know what the formulas are, the devs do, but I'm just explaining. And so they go on to show that in ABL, the difference between a crit and a non-crit is massive. It's very noticeable. So you can see here that non-crits are just over 100,000 points. So you can see here a crit hit for 190,000, and then a non-crit hit for only 130,000. So that you're talking about a massive increase here in the amount of damage, which then translates into score. So, and this sort of supports what a lot of players have been reporting recently after the changes, after the initial buffs to the Rage CTP, is that it definitely works in Alliance Battle Extreme and Alliance Battle Legend. Now, that may be an unfortunate piece of news for players who really were looking forward to the Reforged Rage, but aren't big fans of ABX and ABL. I know personally it's taken me some time to accept that ABL is a much more important game mode now, but this sort of sums up what their video describes. In this, you can see that critical damage works in ABL, then it works a little bit less so in Dormammu GBR, and then it really just doesn't work very much in World Boss Legend. Okay, and it's a really good video. It's very detailed. They obviously did put a lot of thought and effort into this, so I definitely recommend, and I hope that you all check out this video. I'll leave a link below in the description, and that you show some love here, because they did an awesome job. But that basically, in my mind, that really reflects exactly what the devs are saying. So it seems like this person, Pedro, they really hit the pulse on what's going on with the CTP of Rage and why it's so difficult to balance, right? Maybe just the way that certain game modes are calculating crit damage is not synergizing at all. Maybe Pierce doesn't synergize with increased crit damage. Like, we don't know, right? We don't actually know. If Pierce is ripping through to true damage, then it's just setting the number as high as possible. So regardless of how much crit damage you have, it doesn't matter because you've already got 25 Pierce and you're already, you know, completely ignoring and bypassing their defenses. Who knows, right? Who knows? Anyways, that's that. I'm not too worried about the Rage situation. I am monitoring it. We've already told players not to go crazy with reforging, but hopefully the devs will fix it, right? The CTP thing is important, but characters are more important, right? So let's go to the characters now. Improvements on Black Bolt's Tier 4. As we're preparing to release Black Bolt's Tier 4, we noticed that the increased final damage effect was being applied wrong, and they found that Hulk, who uses the same final damage effect, had the same issue. And so they told agents they were going to be fixed. Here's the problem that most players have with this. Hulk has been fixed through November update to the intended damage. This is categorically false. Whether the devs know or not, Hulk's Tier 4 ability is not providing any buff at all. So they essentially have just gone back to square one. If you don't recall, when Hulk was initially released, players realized after a few days, after some testing, that his Tier 4 ability did not impact anything. You could press the Tier 4 and do your world boss run, or you could not press the Tier 4 and do your world boss run, and it would have the exact same time. And as I'm speaking, I'm putting up these clips of him running through because it's exactly what happened again. So basically, they buffed Hulk, right, a few weeks after he came out, and they made him way too strong, and all the content creators and everybody was like, this is probably not going to last. Hulk is literally the best character in the game now for all content. And now they've balanced Hulk, they've fixed him, but they basically just hit the reset button and brought him back to how he was when he initially came out, which is a good character, still excellent for PvP, but very obviously, like very clearly not working because his Tier 4 does not impact at all. So you're Tier 4ing him for the stat boost, not for the Tier 4 effect, and that's completely unacceptable. So the devs still have a lot of work to do with Hulk, and this answer is categorically false. And they have to realize this, acknowledge this, and vow to fix Hulk. I'm not saying they need to bring Hulk back to the way that he was when he was OP broken, but they need to find a middle ground for him so that when you press his Tier 4, you can actually feel that there's a damage increase. Whether that damage increase is 10% or 20%, I don't care, but it has to be more than 0%, which is what it is right now. So that's the issue with Hulk. Going back to Black Bolt, they have adjusted the performance of Black Bolt's striker skill to the intended performance, considering the increased final damage effect. Now, when they say it's a bug and it's being applied wrongly, we don't know exactly what that means. Does that mean that it's having an unintended effect? It's having some unintended interaction with another, another buff or another skill or whatever? We don't know. The devs, I guess, also don't know because they keep going back and forth on how to buff things. But essentially, what they're saying is that the performance of Black Bolt has decreased for players who have high pierce damage. And so they're planning to improve Black Bolt back to his former performance. This is all a very confusing way of saying they're just gonna buff Black Bolt again, right? After they unintentionally nerfed him. So the devs are still figuring out how to manage and navigate and balance around, CTPs of Rage and Mighty and Reforged CTPs of Rage, tier 4 abilities, tier 4 buffs, level 80, and this new effect called Increase Final Damage. They haven't gotten it right yet, obviously, looking at Hulk and Black Bolt. Hopefully they will get it right. I do have faith that they will, but they really can't stop at just Black Bolt. They really do need to go back and fix Hulk, and they also do need to take a second look at Namor. They don't mention Namor anywhere in these patch notes, and I'm not saying that Namor is trash. I'm not saying he's the worst tier 4, but he really should not be as bad as he is, especially before tier 4. Okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about Namor, but I want to just read the end of these patch notes here, the dev note here. We noticed the performance of Black Bolt was decreased for agents with high pierce, so they're planning to improve his damage. They're aiming to make these improvements within November as well, together with the improvements to the CTP of Rage. So we should be seeing the buffs to Black Bolt to bring him back in line with his prior damage, and the changes to the Reforged Rages before December. And as a thank you, they gave everyone in the game an Odin's Blessing chest. So if you go over to the inbox and you go over to Notice tab, you'll see you have an Odin's Blessing chest, and you can open that, and then, okay, you close this, and then, okay, I got an insight. Very cool. So that's that. So yeah, the patch notes, or the dev note is good. I like the communication. I think it's great. However, I think it's only talking about half of the issues. Black Bolt and the Rage CTP definitely need to be addressed, but Hulk needs to be addressed. You're not finished. He's still bad. I mean, he's not bad, but he's still clearly not working with his tier 4 skill. And then last but not least, Namor. The issue that I have with Namor is basically this. He's an MCU character. You're positioning this update and, of course, advertising it, marketing it as a big MCU update. If you're going to be drawing in new players to the game, and coincidentally they buffed all of the new player and returning player rewards to make them way better, and I'll do a separate video on that, but of course they did that because they're hoping that this update drums up a lot of attention and brings in a lot of new and returning players to MFF. Who are these players going to want to play with? If they're seeing advertisements for MFF Wakanda Forever, who are they going to want to play with? Jean Grey? Are they going to want to play with Colossus? No, they're going to want to play with the new Black Panther Wakanda Forever characters. They're going to want to play with Shuri. Hey, good news. Shuri's really good. They're going to want to play with Ironheart. Good news. She's an excellent support and lead, and she has cool animations. They're going to want to play with Namor. Jazz music stops. Namor is shitty at level 70. He doesn't compete at all with Venom and other level 70s. Okay, Alex, what about at level 80? He's also not very good. Joke's on us. He's also not very good at level 80. He apparently gets good at tier 4, but that's not really the point, right? New and returning players, they can't wait that long. They don't have resources piled up because they're new or returning players. So they don't have the materials that I have and that you have to splurge on tier 4 Namor. I'm really happy for all of you out there who got tier 4 Namor and you're satisfied with his production, but you got to see it from this point of view. They're underselling this update by not making Namor better at 70 and 80. They really should have approached him the same way they approached Venom. It doesn't make any sense to me. And you can make excuses about, oh, the tier 3 skill is different, yada yada yada, this and that, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, it's about the product. And if players pick up the product and the product feels shitty, they're going to put the product down. And then we don't get the new players. And then the game doesn't have as long of a lifespan. So then what was the point of all the marketing and advertising? I may be overreacting and being a bit dramatic to this. It's just one character in a game of 252. I'm fully aware of that. But at the same time, or 250, yeah, 252. But at the same time, it pisses me off because they can obviously do it, right? When they want to, they can obviously make a character who's good at level 70, good at level 80, and good at tier 4. And they don't even have to go all the way, but couldn't it be more balanced? He was pretty good at 70, 80, and tier 4. He was pretty good at 70, 80, and tier 4, right? He was pretty good at 70, 80, and tier 4. I mean, there's levels to this. Some of them are better than others. But still, why? Why do we have to have another Blue Dragon who's terrible until they're tier 4? Blue Dragon is an obscure character, so I can maybe understand. The diehards are going to tier 4 her anyways. Not to pick on her, but just, you know, if we're going to make the comparison, Namor is the main antagonist of the biggest Marvel movie this year. If that's not a reason to make him good from start to finish, I don't understand MFF anymore. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the patch note, the dev note. Let me know what you think of the Rage Reforging controversy, Black Bolt controversy, Hulk controversy, and now Namor. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.